We're here to talk about building a defensible trade compliance program. And I know that sounds like a big old thing, but it's important that you can defend these problems that may come up.
Absolutely.
So what specifically, what do we mean? What wouldn't be a defensible?
Well, we've visited, throughout several of our Trade Buzz discussions in the past about the importance of document, and having everything, and that, the government is asking for more and more deeper level information. For USMCA, they want to know the bill of material, the supplier information, the purchase order. They want the actual showing of how the rules of origin were applied, right? That's just one example, but it's across the board with everything. And so, making sure that, think of every transaction you do and your overall program as at some point you're going to end up in court. And you're going to have to prove to a judge that you have followed everything that you needed to do so that you have a good, solid defense, because the government is going to act like the prosecutor, and you've got to be able to stand up and hold your ground. So making it defensible means writing everything down. You need that manual. You've got to have that policy and procedure documented, showing exactly what you're going to do and making sure that they actually reflect what you do. I've seen many times where companies, I'll go in and do an audit or review or an assessment of their business, and they've got really good documentation, but then when we would actually follow a transaction from start to finish, that transaction did not follow their established policies and procedures. Either they were out of date, or things got out of sync, or problems or changes were made in their process that didn't sync up with their policies and procedures. That actually exposes you to more risk. The last thing you want to do is say I'm doing ABC and do LMNOP. That makes it even worse.
It makes it seem like you're hiding something, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Makes it seem like you're that, or you're just irresponsible.
Yeah.
Right. And so those type of things you definitely want to avoid.
Can we talk about some of the scrutiny? Like, how deep does it go? The devil's is in the details here. And the devil's sort of the government looking at everything, your details, right?
They absolutely are. They're digging in very, very closely and looking at every single activity. So that defense has to be not just for the overall program in general, but every single transaction needs to be treated like at some point you're going to have to be able to support why you made the individual decisions that you made. And so making sure that for all of your documentation that's recorded. So part of that can be using a system. I definitely recommend a global trade management system. I know that sometimes people get worried because these big, huge enterprise systems are so expensive, but there are solutions out there in the marketplace, solutions that we at Vigilant use. We're not a huge organization, we're a good sized company, but we're not huge. So we've been able to find tools in the marketplace that are affordable and that are workable for our clients. And so that's a way of being able to document your process and put controls in place within the tools so that every transaction follows all those rules, records every decision along the way, has an audit trail of all those activities. All those things become really, really critical when you're trying to, defend yourself.
Sure. And I know audit trail, that's your favorite 3 words, isn't it? Audit, audit, audit. I've heard him say that many times.
I definitely do. And it's also, and like I said, that defense at each level. I would just share a little story here. Years ago, working at a large tech company, and there were several large tech companies that we found issues during the Iraq War. So during the invasion of Iraq, our officers and intelligence agencies were going into, government buildings, and they were finding in Saddam Hussein's regime's office American computers. So, American branded computers were sitting in the corporate or in the federal offices of Saddam Hussein's government, which, by the way, that country had already been under sanctions and embargoes for many, many years. And so, of course, regulators show up, guns on hips. What's going on? Why are your computers sitting in a country that's been sanctioned for many, many years? Wow. Fortunately, we had the defense. We had the policies, we had the procedures, we had the tools, we had end user statements for those individual exports showing that we sent it to the best of our knowledge to the right location. The fact that they got rerouted and ended up to Iraq, that was somebody else. That was our customer's customer that made that decision. But we did not receive fines, penalties. None of those companies did because their programs were defensible. So the impacts of this are tremendous. It does cost some time, it does cost some money, but that's so much better than the cost could end up on the far end and the reputation.